Question 7, this one is directed to Mr. Goodman. The North Carolina Academy of Trial Lawyers has made undoing North Carolina's contributory negligence standard a top legislative priority. Given that the tort laws are a significant factor in the price consumers must pay for their insurance, do you support or oppose the trial lawyers' efforts? Mr. Goodman, 2 minutes.
I oppose the abolishment of contributory negligence. Most folks don't realize that this has been an issue for a long time. But what I want to point out is this, and I was sharing this with folks in Asheville yesterday with State Farm and other leaders across this state, is that the concern I have is this, is that juries and the legislature and the courts need to ensure that contributory negligence, the law itself, is meted out appropriately. If you have a young driver who is driving home from school or from their first job, and they are then struck by a drunk driver who was weaving all across the road, and the defense attorney points out that the young driver, the young woman who was killed in that accident, was also a couple of inches across the line, contributory negligence, that principle would say that the family of that deceased, the daughter who was killed in that accident, would not recover at all. Contributory negligence needs to remain a factor and function in this state to help keep costs down. But we need to make sure that when justice is meted out, that you do not have someone who is a pure innocent, who is not going to have any remedy, or their family not have any recovery whatsoever. I know those are dramatic examples, but they happen. But fortunately, juries have been out there to say on occasion that they will provide some remedy in a situation like that. So the short answer is we should keep the contributory negligence standard there.
Mr. Smith.
And I'm just going to try and restate what I think I heard, which was we need to keep contributory negligence, but we also need to take into account situations where comparative fault might be more appropriate. In my mind, contributory negligence has maintained a reasonable cost of coverage in the state of North Carolina. And I don't believe that we ought to create any carve-outs or any situations such as the one that Mr. Goodwin explained, because I believe right now the system has worked. I don't believe that we ought to try and double-talk this issue. It's either a yes or a no. Do you favor the contributory negligence system, or do you think we ought to go to comparative fault? And in my mind, making a change now without any real evidence to show that it won't impact the bottom line of insurance in North Carolina, the answer to the question is we ought to keep what we have.
John, I need to address this. I'm not saying a carve-out. I'm saying that what we have now is what we should keep. And unlike Mr. Smith here, where I have been in the courts of the state and been on both sides of the issue and in the legislature, I'd ask him, what's he going to tell the family of that young woman who was killed in this situation, that there's no recovery? We need to keep the contrib there, but juries need to be allowed to do their job. And if he's proposing undoing the Magna Carta, then that's the change that we need to talk about.
1 minute.
Are you giving out Oscars for drama too, John? I'm just wondering. I think the reality is that I have been in court and I have addressed these issues, and that a responsible lawyer in the state of North Carolina would say to a family in that situation, here's the state of the law in North Carolina. And unfortunately, it doesn't protect your situation. Jury nullification doesn't work in the state of North Carolina because we have a Court of Appeals and a Supreme Court that have on multiple occasions undone those situations. So to lead them on, to make them believe that something would happen when it won't, is unfair
30 seconds.
and not an accurate statement. The reality of it is that the system has saved money, and that a responsible lawyer ought to tell that family what the situation is. That's where I stand. And just for the record, I don't propose or actually support the repeal of the Magna Carta either.
Okay. All right. Question.